Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Selfless Retailer. We're talking today about winning customers in the age of disloyalty. So before we get started, let's just introduce ourselves. Before we get started, we'll test the clicker, then we'll introduce ourselves. There we go. So my name is Joel Percy. I'm with ciValue, and we are a company out of Israel that offers a software solution out of the box that helps retailers deliver truly one-to-one personalized offers and supplier collaboration. My background is with Loblaw companies in Canada, where about 5-6 years ago I helped to design and launch PC Plus, which at the time was one of the first, if not the first, major awards program in the world that was 100% one-to-one true personalization. No base offer, mass offers, anything like that.
And hi, everybody. My name is Julie Curry, and I am with the Nielsen company. Many of you might know us as the Nielsen ratings on the media side or the Nielsen market share on the measurement side. I actually run our product organization at Nielsen aimed at developing products mainly for retailers and their collaboration efforts with suppliers. Happy to be here today.
So welcome to the age of disloyalty. And what do we mean by that? What we're seeing is that customers really today are more disloyal than they've been at any point in history. We all have this idea. If you talk to a retailer or talk to a CPG supplier, they have this idea that there are my customers and there are my competitors' customers. And my customers love me, and they come here every week, and I know them and they know me, and when I talk, they listen, and when they talk, I listen, and we have a great relationship. And it's a wonderful idea, and the only kind of flaw in the idea is that it's just not true. And that what we see, in fact, is that among grocery retailers, that most customers in the United States are visiting 4 or more regularly through the year. Not once or twice, but regularly through the year. So some of you look at that and say, that's great, the 17% are my loyal customers. And the rest of us look at it and say, this is reality. We've got customers who are doing multiple banners for their needs, and we need to figure out how to operate in that environment. Now, there's a few things that we can do when we're trying to promote to customers, trying to incent customers. One thing that we like to do is get me to buy something I've never bought before, right? The cross-sell. One is to get me to buy a more premium version, the upsell. But what we're actually seeing is that the real game here is around share of wallet. It is not about the individual products, it's about the trips. And when I've got a customer going to those 4 different retailers regularly, if I can just get one more trip during the month or during the quarter, they're going to be throwing extra items in the basket that frankly they would have bought somewhere else, because if they were in the store, it's just more convenient to do so. 60% of grocers in US have lost share of wallet over the past 5 years, so we're not winning in the share of wallet game. Some are, of course, but in general, it's a challenge. And so the temptation when we're in this situation is to go back to what's always worked, right? Let's go hit a new market low. Let's go look at the flyer again and really get those hot deals out there and drive traffic into the store. But what we see is that the old tricks aren't really working anymore. And actually, the flyer effectiveness is down 24% over the past 5 years. If I have to sit in another meeting where we talk about we're changing the font, we're changing the color, we're going to really make the value pop, and this is going to change the game, I think we can do better than that, guys, right? And we know that the world is changing. Technology is a huge game changer these days. You walk the floor here at NRF, and you can see it everywhere, right? And so we're seeing that by next year, 85% of purchase decisions are going to be digitally influenced, right? That's not just e-commerce. That's I'm doing research online, and I'm going to bricks and mortar for the purchase. And so our customers today are savvy, they're connected, they're digital. They've got a device in their pockets that lets them compare prices or read reviews or ask their friends, and that's how they're deciding what to buy. And so we want to be in that game with them, and we know that technology has an opportunity to give us the results that we want, but we also know there's a downside to technology, right? That little device in their pockets is also helping them to look at our competitors. And so actually our customers, turns out, are cheating on us with the equivalent of a dating app, right? And we don't want to be the one that when we come up, they swipe left, right? And so how do we look at this? customers have got this technology at their fingertips. And for us, we say they're cheating on us, but they don't think they're cheating on us, right? They're just shopping. And it turns out actually we're the only ones who thought this was a monogamous relationship. Now, we want to invest in technology, and all of you have probably seen things here at the show that you would say, we need that, right? That's a priority, we want to invest in that. But the problem is that often we see that retailers are investing in technology, but not actually changing the mindset or changing the strategy. And so we're taking these new tools, and we're making the same mistakes we've always made, we're just making them digitally, and we're making them faster. And so if we want to use technology as more than just an accelerator of our mistakes, we need to think about how do we operate in this new world. So with all of that going on, the question is there any hope?
Thanks, Joel. Nielsen does business in about 90 countries, and we work with most of the major retailers in all those countries. And the first thing I can say is that there is hope, because interestingly, when we look across the landscape of our customers and of retailers, you're actually seeing that the strong are getting slightly stronger. I mean, it's kind of an interesting statistics to understand those retailers who already enjoy a higher customer loyalty base than their competitors are actually growing their share of wallet versus their competition. So we're always asking ourselves, as we look across our landscape, what do we see those retailers doing differently than other retailers? And it always boils down to their mindset. These customers or these retailers have really embraced the concept of disloyalty. They're not running away from it, they're embracing it. And in doing so, they have an understanding of their customers much better than their competition. They really have embraced the idea of moving their business to looking at it through a much more customer-centered lens versus a store-centered lens. We kind of call them kind of a selfless retailer, right? And when you're a selfless retailer and you really understand the total picture of your customer and really invest in to understand that customer, it gives you an opportunity to look at those disloyalty patterns and actually capitalize them. And that's basically what we see these retailers who are successful at continuing to grow their share of wallet in this disloyal world that we live in, what they're doing to succeed. So there are, when we look across these retailers, there are three things in their playbook, in their arsenal, that seem to be consistent across the board when retailers are winning. And we're going to go through these in a little bit more detail. But to begin with, every single one of them has an enrichment kind of game that they're playing. And what I mean by that is that they are really invested in understanding their customers kind of from a total buying perspective, not just what they're doing in their store, but understanding the full life of that customer. The second thing that they're doing well is that they're enabling that learning in a very collaborative way. So they're going to have a much broader data sharing policy than maybe some of the other retailers, because they recognize in order to win, they need to actually collaborate that learning not only across their functions within their company, but then also importantly with their suppliers across their ecosystem. And then the last thing they're doing, which might seem a little bit obvious, but because of all of that learning, their execution on personalization is second to none, because they are actually successful at giving their customers the offers that they want versus the offers that they had been in their plan or what they had done last year. So those three elements are in every single one of these winning retailers' playbook. So we'll go through each one of them in a little bit more detail, but let me go into enrichment to start with. So in enrichment, I always find this an interesting and a kind of a funny conversation, which is when you look at loyalty measurement and you look at loyalty measurement within your stores, the interesting part is that you're actually not measuring loyalty. You're measuring everything about what that customer is doing in your store. But in this case, you can look at this example where here are two customers that if you were looking at them through a retailer's kind of traditional loyalty information, you would see them being kind of a similar value customer. So they both might be in the same kind of value customer segment. But in the end, you can see that the second customer is actually having a much higher potential. So you would want to actually target and interact and engage with that customer in a different way, because they represent a lot more opportunity for your business than the first customer. So kind of that's the first orientation to why enrichment becomes so important, and the learning about your customers in a total way, in their total life, is like an important part of these retailers' playbook. So completing the picture of these high-value customers is really an important step. When you think about adding things like credit card data or market data or panel data or media data to your existing loyalty information, you can just imagine the amount of learning that you get about that customer, and most importantly, it's all about seeing what they're doing outside of your store. So let me give you an example of that. So this is a traditional view that you might see about a customer, right? So you might know a lot about who she is from the demographics that you can ascertain from your loyalty data, or even just looking at the purchase behavior. You understand what she's buying. Obviously, you understand a lot about her basket details. You understand how often she's coming into the store, and you can see the changes in that behavior over time. Imagine, when I talk about enrichment, all of these attributes of this shopper, and imagine what you're able to do with your marketing programs and your merchandising programs when you know this much about the customer. Not only who she is, but you understand her lifestyles, you understand her psychographics, you understand what she's buying, not only, again, within your store, but within the total market. Interestingly, you understand what she watches, you understand what her media behavior is and her media preferences are. You understand what type of channel she's interested in. That is only information that you find when you actually embrace the enrichment part of your playbook. We call that filling in the blind spots. When you fill in the blind spots about your customers, obviously there are three things that are going to come of that. One of it's you're going to have better tailored offers to exactly what it is that she wants and what actually will move her behavior. You're going to have a lot of information about your most valued customers, and because of that information, you're also then going to be able to pivot and begin to target those behaviors in your competitors' customers. And that's where really the magic happens, when you're going to begin to be able to acquire your competitors' disloyal purchase behaviors from their customers. And that's really where we have seen, at least in our measurement, that those retailers who are enriching that information about their customers really see about a 3 times higher redemption rate. So their personalization is actually a much more effective program when they do this enrichment. However, as I said in that first slide about what's in a retailer's playbook, enrichment is not the only thing that you have to be thinking about.
Great, so you've got this data. You've got your internal data from transaction logs and loyalty. You're hopefully enriching with external data to learn more about your customers. So what are we doing now with the data? Well, the first thing that we want to do is democratize it, right? We want to get the data on everybody's desktop and get as many eyeballs on it as we can. What you typically find in retailers is that there's some kinds of data that are everywhere, right? You want to know how you indexed against Walmart on milk in southern Maine last Tuesday. We got that report, right? Everybody can get it. You want to know if you gained or lost customers last month. In a lot of cases, there's a very small group of people in the organization who actually have access to that. And we find there's typically an adoption curve where in the early days, you may have 5 people on a loyalty team who can answer that question for you. And as it grows, there's a marketing team with maybe 25 people who have access to that. And then it starts to get shared with the merchants, and then maybe you've got 50 or 100 people who have access to it. And over time, that extends even beyond the walls of the office out to suppliers that we're collaborating with. And then we've got 500 people who are all looking at the customer level data. And so a good question to ask yourself is, where are you on that adoption curve? Because if we're going to put the customer at the center, and the data about who the customer is and what they're doing is only accessible to 5 people in the organization, it's very hard to make customer-centered decisions. And a lot of things are going to keep getting done in the way that they've been always done, right? And so we're talking about getting it accessible in a way that is easy and fast and intuitive. I don't have to go to IT and get them to pull a flat file and wait 5 days to get the answer back that I was looking for and realize I asked the wrong question and I have to go again. But it's there on my desktop, and I can click and I can change the view and I can filter it and I can make real-time decisions based on what I'm seeing. And so that's talking about sharing it within the organization. The other thing we want to talk about here is the role of the data scientists, because we really believe at ciValue that there is it's time to elevate the data scientists in the organization. Okay? Sometimes that's literal because they're in the basement and we need to bring them up and get them at the table with the people who are running the business. But more importantly, it's about getting tools that will automate all the repetitive processes, right? So that data scientists can actually begin to add the value that they were hired to add. And so the data scientist team is not there to be a vending machine that spits out customer lists for email campaigns, because we can do that ourselves, self-serve automatically. And the data scientists are now thinking about strategic questions and doing analytics for us at a higher level. So that's internally. We now want to talk about externally. What are the winning retailers doing with their data in terms of suppliers? And the short answer is they're sharing it. Now, typically, we like to hold this stuff close to our chest, because if we share our data with suppliers, what are they going to do? They're going to use it against us, right? And what has happened over time, and some of you may be able to relate to this in your organization, is that the relationship between retailers and suppliers is filled with mistrust. And my job when we sit down is to squeeze $1 out of you, and your job is to squeeze $1 out of me, and maybe we both squeeze half $1 and go back and tell our boss we did a great job. But it's not a great way to collaborate, right? And so the retailers that are really gaining, as Julie talked about, are the ones who are saying, let's look at this data together and shift from I'm buying from you to a mindset that says I'm selling with you. Our job is to sell more product to the customers, and if we are looking at the same information together, we can do that better. As a starting point, and this is just a starting point, imagine a meeting between a category team and a supplier where the first half hour isn't spent arguing about whose number is right, because you've been looking at the same sales data through the same portal, right? Just that is a huge step forward for a lot of retailers. But of course, we can do even more. And we can get to more advanced insights and collaboration. We can execute campaigns together based on what we're learning. It can be initiated by us, initiated by the supplier. There's all kinds of things that start to happen when we open up the customer data and look at that together. And what happens at the end of the day is that the next time that supplier has $1 to spend on marketing, who are they going to spend it with? They're going to come and see you because you've got that relationship, you've got that track record, and you've got that trust built. So we've talked about enriching, we've talked about enabling. How do we execute? What are we actually going to do once we gather the data, get the insights, and decide together what needs to happen? Well, we want to talk about how we're executing on personalization. So this is the kind of stunning insight that you gave up your lunch for to come and learn. Give customers what they want. Isn't that amazing, right? We're giving this away for free. It's fantastic. But the truth is, we all know this, but we don't do it, right? And so here's what happens. Retailers are organized around people whose job is to sell individual products. And so in every supermarket retailer, there is a guy who owns breakfast cereal, and he eats, sleeps, and breathes breakfast cereal, and he gets paid at Christmas based on how well he did selling breakfast cereal. If I go to him and say, I've got this new personalization engine, and it can customize offers for all the customers and give them exactly the things they like, who does he want to send the Rice Krispies offer to? Not to people who buy Rice Krispies. I've already got those sales, right? I want to send it to people who don't buy Rice Krispies. Let me get my hands on that personalization engine. This is going to be huge. Now, you multiply that across the whole organization, and what have we just done? We've just used the latest technology and sophisticated algorithms to give our customers exactly the things that the data tells us they don't want. And that is the opposite of personalization, right? Now, if the focus only is on selling an individual product, that makes sense. But if we go back to the question of winning that share of wallet from competitors by driving trips, how am I going to drive a trip with my customer and get her to choose me over a competitor? It's by giving her the offers on the things that are personalized to her that she was going to buy anyway. And when she's there in the store, lots more things go in the basket because there's all those items that are fluid that she doesn't care where she buys. And I've just won the trip. And at the retailer level, though not always at the product level, the lifts are fantastic when we start to take this approach of giving customers what we actually want. This, by the way, is also how you build the relationship to enable the other things we talked about. Suggesting new products, driving sales on innovation, upselling into premium. You don't do that on kind of the first date, right? if all I do is get offers on things that I don't buy, I'm just going to tune out. I'm not going to open the email anymore. I'm not going to use the app. But if I'm regularly getting rewards on the things I buy, and there are also things in there that are pushing me to try something new, you've got my attention. So that's number one, is giving customers what they want. The second thing is building the offer bank. And this is one that we see time and time again getting missed or left out of the plan and the process, and it's a huge, huge enabler for personalization. So let's do a little experiment. I want you to think right now of your favorite fruit. Maybe you love ripe mangoes, maybe you love berries when they're in season, fresh pineapple, whatever it is, you got your favorite fruit. And let's say I'm a retailer who wants to send you an offer on your favorite fruit. But I went to my suppliers and I said, who wants to do a coupon? And the only people who ponied up were the apple suppliers and the orange suppliers. So I've got two offers in my bank. I got an offer on apples and an offer on oranges. And I'm going to run my algorithm and score every one of you on which one is the right offer. And for some of you, you're going to get apples, and some of you, you're going to get oranges. And that was the highest scoring thing. I got this fancy personalization program, and I'm nailing it. Show of hands, how many people picked apples or oranges as your favorite fruit? So other than 3 of you, everyone in here was disappointed and got the wrong offer. And back at head office, we're high-fiving, right? Personalization is going great. The key metric here is not how many offers are in the offer bank. The key metric is what % of my sales is covered by the offers in the offer bank. We've worked with a retailer who was running a personalization program, very large offer bank. They'd done a ton of work on it. We ran this metric. Less than 3% of their sales was represented in that offer bank because it was all niche products, new products, vendor priorities, not driven by customer priorities. We think the right target is somewhere 70 to 80% of your sales covered, which means a lot of grunt work and writing copy and sourcing images and all kinds of stuff that is not nearly as sexy or exciting as personalization algorithms, but it is the base work that has to be done in order to do this right and delight our customers. The last thing we want to talk about is leveraging AI. Now, I realize most of you would probably say, AI? I've never heard of that. I've never seen those letters anywhere around NRF. And we get it, right? So AI is a big thing. It has all kinds of applications. And our angle on it and what we want to talk about today is the fact that this really gives us the tools we need to actually listen properly to our customers. What do I mean? When you're sending out a flyer, customer expectations about what's in that flyer are very low, right? Some things are going to be great for me, and some things aren't. And I get it, because it's the same for everybody. But as soon as you say it's personalized, now my expectations are sky high. I have never heard a customer say, oh, that's a weird offer, but I guess false positives are inevitable with a recommender engine based on Bayesian networks, right? So I'll forgive them. The customer says, dog food? I don't even have a dog. They must be idiots, right? Customers don't care about our algorithms. They don't care about our technology. They don't care how the offers are chosen. They just want us to get it right. If you Google e-com substitution fails, you'll see some great examples. You'll see great customer comments about how stupid they think the person is that did this. Of course, customers don't think it was it's technology, right? They think it was a person. And so machine learning really is the way that we need to listen to our customers in order to get it right. Machine learning thrives on inputs. We need data. And so yes, we know what you've bought in the past, but we also need to be empowering customers to give feedback on the promotions we're sending them, right? This is the wrong thing. I don't want this anymore. I need a button to be able to tell you that. This is the right thing, but the wrong time, because I just bought it. So can you give it to me next month? This I bought as a gift for someone, so it has nothing to do with me, right? I see why it's there, but let's remove it from my history. So if we're not giving customers ways to tell us that, then the algorithms can't learn properly. And so we need to set up these ways for customers to give feedback so that we can listen to them and we can learn. Now, what are you going to do later this week when you get back to the office with all of this? 3 things that we would suggest. One is find a way to begin to integrate customer data from outside your stores. We hope you know what's happening in your stores, but as Julie showed us, there's a whole world for the customer that isn't visible within the four walls of your store. You need to start finding sources for that and integrating it with the data you have. Number 2, begin sharing customer level data internally and externally. Probably internally first. And yeah, there's some conversations about what to share and what to hold back on for now. But begin to take steps to say, let's set this up so that it's not just a select few in the organization who can see the customer data, but let's get it in people's hands and on their desktops. And number 3, if you are running any kind of personalization program today, I would challenge you to calculate that metric. What % of my sales is covered in the offers that I'm sending today? And if it's lower than 70 or 80%, you've still got room to grow and still got room to get closer to that true personalization experience that we really want to deliver. That is what you can do later this week. What you can do today is come talk to us. Because as luck would have it, we have some tools that can help with these kinds of things, and we think they're pretty good tools and pretty useful. And so we would love to talk to you after the session. We're at 2945, which is just out there, and we'd love to have a conversation. So we have a few minutes to open it up for questions, if there are any questions that anybody has. Yes?
So what's the best way, or what tools do you see out there that you prefer to use most often to augment the data that they have internally? All the demographics we have.
Yeah, so that's basically we are working with retailers all over. So one of the things that we bring to the party, right, is that we have reference data on all the customers and all the products. So some of it just starts with you got data sets, we have data sets, or a third party has data sets. How do you help create the glue that allows you to actually maximize utility of those data sets? So it really starts with what are you trying to accomplish? What insights are you trying to accomplish? And then we sit down with the retailer and kind of map out how to get those data sets working in tandem with one another versus in conflict with one another. It does start with the reference data.
So what are you had as an example, like this person shops at or gets coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, and I forget what the other example was, Starbucks and things. So like the road is littered with a lot of folks who try to go down to credit card companies and get that level of data. Is anyone doing it right today?
Well, I mean, I'd love to. Why don't you come talk to us afterwards? I can just tell you what we're doing about it, obviously we're going to be a little biased as to how we are doing it, but it can maybe give you some thoughts on kind of the methodologies that we're employing. That's probably a way to go about it. In a nutshell, though, right? Really, what you're trying to do is to try to use whatever information you can in order to create a kind of a total share of wallet, right? And that has both in-home and out-of-home purchasing that you're interested in getting. And so that has to do with like where are the best data sources. Some of it's credit cards, some of it's other data suppliers, some of it's us, right? And then just creating that customer share of wallet, share of spending, across those data sets.
Any other questions before we break? All right. Well, thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.